You actually have to be on cocaine to be on this podcast?
It's a great day to be a Wildcat!
Cocaine.
Surfing.
What is up, everybody? You're listening to yet another edition of Cocaine Willie, the official K-State representative on the College Huddle. I am your commissioner, Bob Trollsby, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, the good chef, Andre Napier, as Fireball Matt Marchesini is somewhere in another continent, still different continent than he was in the last episode, but still on a different continent. But tonight, we are joined by now two-time guest Ryan Monceaux from GoCougs.com to help us preview this weekend's matchup against the Houston Cougars at TDECU Stadium, which is the name of a stadium I am very excited not to have to say anymore, because aren't they changing that to Space City Credit Union?
Space City Financial something, yeah.
They
It'll
should just
change
call it
next
Space
year.
City. Just call it Space City.
I think
Call it a day.
U of H people would love it.
And then you get
we'll
get a little rivalry going with UCF out of it and have it be, the space race or something.
Uh-huh.
I think that's what we should do. But appreciate you joining tonight, Ryan. Before we get into the episode, I do want to give a quick shout out to our two sponsors, Anime's Parlor and Pat's Beef Jerky. This show, not this beer crack, because I'm feeling a little under the weather, is brought to you by Anime's Parlor, located at 616 North 12th Street in the heart of Aggieville in Manhattan, Kansas. Anime's has been in business for 50 years running and is an absolute must-visit destination in Aggieville on game days and school nights alike. Anime's is far and away my favorite destination in Aggieville, and I always make a point to go visit my auntie every time I go back to the Little Apple. They have comedy, live music, all sorts of other events. The F&Gs are going to be playing there on Halloween, so October 31st, as you're listening to this, on Tuesday, October 29th. So be sure to get down to the F&Gs on Thursday at Annie Mae's. And then on Friday, November 1st, we have Boot Hill Jazz Night with the AFKs at Annie Mae's Parlor. So make sure to check out their list of events at animes.com, and be sure to visit your auntie if you're not making the trip down to Houston to watch the game this weekend. Again, they're located at 616 North 12th Street in the heart of Aggieville, and be sure to tell them Cocaine Willie sent you. The show is also brought to you by Pat's Beef Jerky, located at 401 Main Street in Liebenthal, Kansas. Pat's Beef Jerky has been serving up the finest beef jerky in the Midwest for 34 years strong, and they feature mouth-watering flavors like their classic beef jerky, the teriyaki beef jerky, and my personal favorite, the savory beef pepper sticks. There are 3 places where you can get yourself some Pat's Beef Jerky. You can pick it up in person at the Fridge Liquor Store in Manhattan, or at their original store at 401 Main Street in Liebenthal. Last but not least, you can get your Pat's Beef Jerky online at www.patsbeefjerky.com. And they have shipped to all 50 states, so there's not really any excuse not to. If you haven't placed your order yet, be sure to use the promo code CATS at checkout. You'll receive 10% off of your next order. So use the promo code CATS at checkout for that 10% off, and visit patsbeefjerky.com to place your order today. So, Ryan, the last time...
Time out.
Okay.
Those were really nice reads.
Thank you.
For 2 advertisers. We have a pizza place in Houston that sponsors our stuff, and we have our fat guy just talk about all the shit that he ate at this pizza place the last week. But y'all's way is way more professional.
My background is in radio when it comes to the broadcast side of things, so that's why I do more of a radio style ad read. But
because if it was up to me, I would do exactly how you would do it. I would just talk about all the different kinds of beef jerkies that I throw into my pie hole.
And I could just wax poetically about the amount of very, very intoxicated nights I've spent at Annie Mae's Parlor, but that doesn't seem necessarily appropriate to get people in the door. But
maybe not.
That said, last year when we spoke, Dana Holgerson was still your head coach. You told us, I think, if you were to put it on a scale of like 1 to 10 or put a percentage chance on it, I think you gave it like a 45% chance that he was going to get fired. So you were relatively low on that.
Unless everything went to hell after we talked, is what I said. And then everything went to hell. Lost to Kansas State. You beat Baylor, goofily, and then lost to Oklahoma State and UCF and Cincinnati to end the season. So I didn't see the go, and I also didn't see 41-0. I didn't see that coming.
Fair.
But
Well, I got to see it in person, albeit it was very cold, but
yeah,
not the most entertaining game. I'll say that at least.
yeah. Well,
the K-State side it was, but
before the game, the U of H receivers came out in shorts and no shirt, and it was 30 degrees, 28 degrees with wind chill, and I was like, this is not.
Well, I was planning on
This ain't gonna go well.
I was planning on taking my, at the time, 3-month-old son to the game. And when we saw that the wind chill was like 25 degrees, we said, that's absolutely not happening. So, yeah, it was very cold. But all of that is to say, you went out, you fired Dana Holgorsen. So, mission accomplished. Check the box there. No more Red Bull with potentially something else maybe mixed into it. I don't know. Speculating. But
You don't have to speculate.
you've got Kansas native Willie Fritz at the helm now in Houston. Dana Holgorsen is a long lost memory at this point. And Fritz was easily one of the most applauded hires of this most recent offseason cycle, with his track record of success at every level. When you go back to his roots at Blaine College, Central Missouri, working his way up to Sam, and then Georgia Southern, and then finally turning around a Tulane program that had been a fairly dismal program outside of 1998. For
1998 is when they went
memory.
Undefeated.
Oh, and we learned all about that when we had our Tulane guest on 3 years ago, or I guess 2 years ago for that preview.
2 years ago, when Willie beat Kansas State.
Correct. So
Absolutely.
he has familiarity with the staff, and we have familiarity with him in the way that he does things. Although his offensive coordinator from Tulane's now at LSU,
Right.
But Houston, not necessarily on track for a 10-win season like Tulane was under Fritz's tutelage. But the good news is that Houston has maybe overachieved to their expectations this year. They're sitting at 11th so far through week 9, sitting at 11th in the conference record, or in the conference standings, with the 2-3 conference record, sitting at 3-5 overall, with wins against a middle of the pack TCU team and the newcomer Utah Ute. So my question here is, just give us a temperature check on where things are at with the Houston program, maybe where the excitement level is among the fans or the fan base, the alumni, and what the progress has kind of looked like for Fritz so far.
Well, number one, you beat the team that dominates the Big 12, Utah. So right at the start, you've got something going for you. Second, if you go and look at the national scoring numbers and you flip them and start at the bottom, U of H is right there on top as the lowest scoring team in the country. So very, very pleased with that. The offense has been bad. There's just no way to put it, or other way to put it. Fans are. I'm a little surprised that they're so negative right now, because you knew that this was going to be a process. The quarterback play was not there last year. It hasn't been there this year. You've got a couple, 3 freshmen at running back and trying some different things at receiver. I said going to the season it would be a 3-win team. Well, you're already there. And, could they get to 4 or 5? That would be, I think, progress, frankly. But, if you saw the score and the stats from last week against Utah, you know that it's not pretty. They completed 6 passes against Utah, which I went and looked up. The last time that had happened was 39 years ago. And they were running the veer at the time. So that's how far back you have to go for a passing day that bad. But in terms of like a temperature check, I think you could see fans kind of rallying. The recruiting class is good. There are positive things going to happen, but you've got to bring in another quarterback, which they have committed, and have some competition at that spot next year. And it's going to take 2 years for that, to get a quarterback into a system and develop. And you're still looking at year 3. And anybody that thought it would happen faster than that is just not living in reality. You brought in, I think it was 63 new players this year, which was only behind Colorado in the entire country. So, how do you get all of that to work together immediately? You didn't. And now they have been playing better, beating TCU, kind of a bad game with Kansas at Arrowhead, and then beating Utah.
There you go. And now you brought up the offense in that little temperature check right there. And the numbers are not great. Like you said,
Nope.
you flip the stats over there. You're seeing Houston dead last, especially in the red zone, only scoring 53.3% of the time. That's not great. You're not running the ball particularly well. What can you tell fans or from K-State? What is the reasoning for that? Is it the O-line? Can you put it on the regression of Donovan Smith or, whatever's going on at quarterback? And you said you're playing young players, so it's kind of a process that you're going to have those lumps. But give me a reason. Maybe you have the answer on what the offense needs and why is it not necessarily putrid, because I don't want to use that word, but it is bad.
Yeah, it's bad. I think the running game is starting to turn a corner. I think the offensive line has played better, but you've lost a guy that had gotten into the starting lineup. You lost him during the Kansas game, I believe. But they ran for 228 yards against Utah. They ran it okay against Kansas, and I think they ran it pretty well against TCU. E- Donovan Smith was the starter, and they brought in Zion Chris from Louisiana Lafayette. Chris has inserted himself and has become the starter, but he's had some nagging injuries. He had one in the UNLV game. He had one a few weeks later, and so he struggled to complete games. The 2 that he has completed were TCU and Utah. You win both of those games. So, if he can stay healthy, he is a very good runner from the quarterback spot. And that's really the place you're getting it is running the ball, the quarterback running the ball. They have been bad on third down. But if y'all recall, or if when Willie beat Kansas State 2 years ago, they were, I think, 1 of 12 or 1 of 15 on third down that day and had about 300 yards offense, turned it over. All the things that U of H is seeing now, and they had a young quarterback in Michael Platt. I think it was his second, maybe third year, maybe second year. But he'd stuck with him. And that guy came in and I think a week or 2 later beat U of H. Or no, I'm sorry, he didn't. He got hurt and they had a third stringer beat U of H. Some freshman kid from Corsicana. And so, Willie has no issue winning ugly, which this year, that's really the only way you're going to do it.
That's for sure. So thinking a little bit more about specifically quarterback, you already mentioned Zion Chris. That's a position that at Houston so far this season's been a little bit in flux because we obviously knew about Donovan Smith coming into the year was the starter. Zion Chris has now supplanted him as the starter. He comes in, he's thrown 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions so far this season, threw 1 pick against Utah and did fumble it twice as well. But he's also the 3rd leading rusher on the team with 219 yards on the ground. But he has struggled maybe with some turnover proneness from time to time, or at least maybe not holding onto the ball if it doesn't get recovered by the other team. But he is currently 11th in the nation in most fumbles on offense for a player. which is just an interesting stat to look at. But what is your assessment of the quarterback room? And maybe I want to dig in on this too, because there's been a lot of conversation the last 3 weeks for K-State fans because we gone against Garrett Green, Jalen Daniels, and now Zion Chris. Does he really qualify as a dual threat given that he has so many yards on the ground? So would like to dig in on that.
I think the dual threat would be run left, run right. It at this point, it's not throwing the ball, and some of that is he's not good in throwing to the sidelines, throwing into the flats, and they're asking him to do some things that he's just not comfortable with. The turnover last week was just a fluke thing. I think a couple of his have been flukes. He did put the ball on the ground at the goal line, kind of a center quarterback exchange issue. But he made the plays when he had to. In the fourth quarter, he was really pretty good. He got a really crucial fourth down. I think he completed 2 of his 6 completions were in the fourth quarter, so that was big. I think he ran for like 50 yards in that quarter. So when U of H needed it, he was there. And he had a big 80, 75-yard run against TCU and marched them down. He got hurt in the TCU game, and Donovan Smith came and closed it out with a crazy 7 or 8 minute drive to ice it. I would not say that I have been pleased with the quarterback play, but it's been so long since I've seen good quarterback play that, maybe it's not so bad. I think what U of H needs is to win games. And it doesn't matter if it's ugly, if it doesn't matter if it's, 7 flea flickers. Just find a way to win it and build your talent and keep getting better and, start building a program instead of putting teams out there every year as they did under Dana.
And when you're completing only 6 passes in a game, the way to win those games, like you said, is to kind of make it a little dirty, a little nasty. And you've ran for 1,100 yards this season with almost everybody on the team contributing to that in a little bit of ways. The running game is something that K-State prides on stopping, but Kansas kind of showed that there's a way to, get around that. And they dropped almost 200 yards rushing on Kansas State. So with the percentage that you guys run, it's damn near 60% of the time you're running the ball. Is there any way that you guys can find success in that and maybe up your level of running that Houston has right now?
I really don't know what you asked right there. So I'm just going to talk about the running game. Your best runner right now is a freshman. I think he's from Alabama. His name is Fat. Jamarian Burnett is his name. Everybody just calls him Fat. Phat. He's a big boy. And he runs angry and runs downhill. And I love seeing him get the ball. You have another freshman who's 5'5", 5'6", who ran for 1,000,000 yards in Texas high school football, broke his leg last year in preseason, didn't get to play. So this is his freshman year. And then you have another freshman who's starting to kind of contribute. He's on kickoff team return now. Just getting his feet wet a little bit. You have some older guys, but really you're starting to see the offense go to those younger guys. But Zion Chris is really the guy that makes it happen. When Donovan was running the offense, the running game was not very good. And against UNLV in the first game, against OU in the second game, against OU, you had a chance to win that game in Norman. There was a fluke kind of bullshit turnover on a muff punt, which didn't really happen. And, you lose that by 4. the running game early was, but it has turned around, and Willie, for the most part, is going to play field position. He's not going to. He's just going to give the defense a chance to win it for him. Where this team is now, the defense has had some really good weeks, and they've just kind of pooped themselves like they did at Arrowhead, giving up 42 or so points.
So when we look at the pass catchers, so Stephon Johnson, Joseph Manjack the fourth, and then Mekhi Muse, they've all got 200 plus yards receiving on the season so far, combined for 6 receiving touchdowns total across the 3 of them. But nobody's really separated themselves out into the kind of 300, 400, 500 yards receiving kind of range. And then you've got Malik Carr, who's in the mix at tight end with 139 yards as well, but nothing really jumps out on the stat sheet at all in the receiving game. So which of these receivers do you think is going to pose the biggest threat to the K-State DB room, knowing that this K-State DB room has kind of gone through their fair share of ups and downs throughout the season?
So Mekhi Muse was the focus in the Kansas game. He's a small guy. He's 5'7", 5'8", transfer from Georgia, punt returner, kick returner, fast. He has the ability, but he is small. And so he's going to have to get a little space between him and a defender really to make it work. Manjack is just a great possession receiver who they have frankly not gotten involved enough in the last few weeks. He had a touchdown catch, went across the middle, a slant route, I believe, and scored from about 40 yards out. Stephon Johnson, probably the best ball Zion Chris has thrown here. He scored on against Utah to the front pylon. And, I really like Stephon Johnson. But if I have to give you a guy, I'm going to say it's Manjack. They're going to unleash him and build some stuff around him. And I think there are several ways it could go. Malik Carr at the tight end position is a freak athlete. He is 6'6". He's a man. And when I shook his hands, it was like, kids have those Hulk hands, like they're really like crushing a Dorito is what it looked like, because his hands were so big, and mine are, look at that. They're not very big. And so it just was like, whoa, this guy's just built a little different, and he'll catch it with one hand, just do crazy stuff. And I really think they could use him. The problem is they've been using 2 tight end sets to run the ball, keeping them in. They'll put him out in the slot and, make some crazy looks, but I don't think they've used him as effectively as they could.
Yeah, Fireball Matt knows all about that. He's on his fantasy team, and he's been getting crapped on every week because of that. But let's switch over to the defense. Maybe I can get a better question in this time, not ramble so much. The defense, 18th in the country in allowing yards per game, 317 of those yards per game. The defense success versus the run and the pass, what are we expecting versus K-State, and how can they limit Kansas State from moving up and down the field?
Tackling. It sounds flippant, but it's not, because they have struggled tackling the last few weeks. Against Kansas, there was a lot of it. Against Utah, it was really just 2 plays, but there were like 4 or 5 missed tackles on those 2 plays. Utah scored on both of them. But other than those 2 plays, they really contained Utah. Now, that offense is not that good. What I think these guys can do is keep the play in front of them. And they're attacking, but they've been really smart. They're not giving up big pass plays. They give up some on the ground, but the most important thing has been to tackle and get off the field on 3rd down. And they were really good at that against Utah. And it'll have to be something, I keep going back to this 2022 game, but 3rd downs Willie's offense really bad, but Kansas State's was too. I mean, it was a 17-10 game. It looked a lot like last week, Utah and Houston. And that's got to be what it looks like. And, Willie's got a bag of tricks. We haven't really seen them this year. So I don't know.
I don't like hearing about bags of tricks.
What's the scheme that I want to get this in real quick? What's the scheme that they're running? I mean, is it similar to what he brought from Tulane? Because
yes,
if I remember anything from Tulane, they had linebackers that can go, sideline to sideline and makes every single play that they possibly could.
Yeah, they brought in a linebacker, and I'm going to try to get all this in. So this kid was a quarterback in high school in Houston, big school. Didn't get a ton of interest. So he went to Louisiana Lafayette, where his dad had played. Didn't like the scenario there. Came back, went to Blinn Junior College for a semester or a year. Didn't play football. Okay. Just went to school. Then went to Houston Christian. And that didn't work out. So then he went to junior college on Long Island. Okay. Played football there. Was going to go to Wagner, but there was a snafu with the scholarships and stuff. So didn't get to go to Wagner. Then went to Louisiana Monroe for 2 years. Okay. Got in the transfer portal. They found him, and he is a star. His name is Michael Batten. He's number 44. I just gave you like 30 schools, okay? The guy's like 50, but still, he's really a good player, good dude. And he is making a lot of plays from that linebacker position. And he's really the part that was missing last year for U of H, I think, was him. And there's another guy on the defensive line named Keith Cooper who came from Tulane. He's a Houston kid, went to Tulane, and was, I think, Willie's first guy that he brought over from Tulane. Kind of an undersized guy, but has played very oversized. He has an NIL shirt that says Grave Digger. And so that's his big thing. And he's a great interview, a great guy to talk to. But Batten, all 50 schools, and Keith Cooper on the defensive line, I think, are the two guys to keep your eyes on.
And you answered the question, because we usually will go like position group by position group.
Oh, sorry.
I had Keith Cooper Jr., I guess, on there.
Junior.
He's leading the defensive line group in sacks with 2.5 sacks. Carlos Allen's another guy that you didn't mention on the defensive line. He's got 30 tackles, so he leads the defensive line group in total tackles. And then Michael Batten was the other guy I was going to mention, in that he leads the team in tackles with 55. He's got 3 sacks, so he leads the team in sacks. He's got 2 fumble recoveries and 6 tackles for a loss, all through 9 weeks, which is pretty incredible statistically. So appreciate you going into detail and telling us a little bit more about those two guys. Moving on to the DBs, another guy that I want to get into is AJ Halsey. I think that's how you pronounce it. Maybe not.
Yep.
He leads the Big 12 right now in total pass breakups with 10 total, 6 coming on deflections, 4 coming on interceptions. And those 4 interceptions are tied for first in the Big 12 in interceptions with KU's Kobe Bryant and Jontez Williams of Iowa State. So with him,
Kobe Bryant is only leading, but he had 9 against U of H.
True. But what kind of situations or matchups does Halsey win in the most? Going into a matchup with K-State, how is that success that he's had previously going to translate?
He jumps routes and gets ahead of a guy and, gets to the ball. He made the play late in the Utah game, an interception on a ball that, frankly, he should have never gotten to. But he made a great read and jumped in ahead of it, which allowed U of H to march a little bit down the field and kick a field goal. But I really liked Halsey. He came from New Mexico, and you just weren't sure if he was going to be able to play at this level. And he was okay last year, but this year he's turned it on in a big way.
You gonna ask this? You want to get into the special teams, Bob, or you want me to ask about
So,
it?
so I have a very specific special teams question. So one of the stats that stood out to me when I was doing my opponent review of Houston, kind of doing my scouting report or whatever, was Houston. The opposing field goal percentage against Houston this season is 50%.
Mm-hmm.
What? Is that just people, are coaching staffs putting their kickers in bad positions, in bad situations? Or is Houston doing a good job of maybe blocking some of those? What's led to that? Because that's a very, very bad conversion percentage for opponents that are kicking field goals against you.
So they blocked a kick early, but I don't think they blocked one since. I think
lot
it
of
was in
doinks
the
there,
UNLV game. Well, Utah, there was a win situation this week.
They
and
missed too, didn't they? Yeah.
They did, and they were both to the same side of the field, I believe. One of them was over 50. But I don't think there's anything special happening. I'm pretty dialed into the special teams, to be honest, which is a weird thing to admit.
Not to
And
us.
I don't.
Not to
Yeah,
us.
no, we're a special teams website. Like, if we could just talk special teams, we would. We have 3 contributors that are former U of H special teams guys, and we have a pretty good relationship with Jack Martin, U of H's kicker, who kicked the game winner last week, and we actually got him. He jumped into the stands to celebrate with 2 guys he grew up with coming to their first U of H game. And so he jumps in the stands. Our photographer gets this great shot. And so we presented him with a big framed copy of that yesterday, and then brought it to our pizza guy to put on the wall at the pizza place.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and we're giving one away right now to anybody, probably not anybody going to watch this, but yeah, we talk special teams nonstop, which annoys a lot of people, I think.
You want to?
You wouldn't annoy K-State fans, I can tell you.
Not. This is special teams you were talking about. I got a question for you before we get into some score predictions. It's a blackout versus K-State. I mean,
Okay.
everybody's getting riled up for it. Is black for Houston, like, is that a really good I don't know, colorway for you guys? Do you like the blackout? Do you like these kind of like specialty uniforms, or do you want the more traditional white helmet, red, that kind of colorway going?
I don't care. I mean, the kids, so they wore a combo in the TCU game, and it was a white helmet and a white jersey and black pants. And we do a Sunday night show, and we have players on, and we just shoot the shit, And so I asked, we had 3 guys on that had scored in that game, and I was like, "Did you like the uniform?" "Oh, it was great. It was great." It's like, okay, then go have fun. I don't care. The blackout, there have been some good black uniforms and some bad black uniforms. U of H tried to do like a red camo and black, and that didn't work at all. They won that game. It was USF in 2013. In 2016, they beat Louisville, who was top 5 with Lamar Jackson, had 11 sacks. That was a fun night. The punter, who was a freshman from Australia, who was 29, who's 6'7", threw for a first down like 35 or 40 yards. That was fun. He actually is a contributor on our website. So the black uniforms have worked out. I don't remember who the game was last year, to be honest. But you buy them, try them out, whatever. They have the Columbia blue, the Oilers blue.
Yeah,
And
that's the best one. That's the
my
best
favorite one.
Yeah,
They
I
might
went
break
to the College
those
Football
out.
Hall of Fame a month and a half ago, and they had that one on display in the Hall of Fame. I'm like, that's an underrated alternate uni. And then the Titans got all mad because
I was about to say, wasn't there an off-season fiasco about that, like a cease and desist?
Right, for a color.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
It's a color.
I've got one last question for you, and then Chef will hit us with score prediction.
I just got a staffer from U of H, a former staffer, just sent me the West Virginia game last year was the blackout game. U of H
Okay.
won that on a Hail Mary.
Oh my God, I remember that game. Yes.
Yeah, that was
That
a
was-
Thursday night.
Thursday night, yeah. That was a
Yeah.
bizarro world. I mean, the Holgerson Bowl didn't disappoint.
Nope.
By any means at all. So, Ryan, when you look at the big picture, I mean, obviously there are a lot of areas where Houston is maybe not up to snuff with where the program, the fans, everybody would want them to be, but they have been a very scrappy squad this year, and they've come, the defense especially has made things difficult for their opponents. So when you look at this big picture, what would you say are some of the matchups or the keys to victory for Houston squad to pull out a win at home against K-State this weekend?
Well, the most important thing is showing up. U of H has not really done that 2 weeks in a row. And I guess OU and Rice, but Rice is so bad they've already fired their coach.
You don't
And-
lose the food.
Well, U of H lost to food last year, and it was ugly. But you haven't seen that consistency. You beat Rice and then you get shut out twice in a row, and that can't happen. And then you beat TCU an off week, and you go to Kansas, and you're competitive for a little bit, but then you lay an egg basically. And last week you were scrappy and you got it done. Can you do that another game in a row? 2 home games in a row doesn't happen a lot. So, a lot of these guys played in Manhattan last year. They remember that was the first shutout for U of H in 23 years. Now we're getting really good at it. It's been 3 in the course of like 10 games or whatever it was. But, they've got to show up for 2 games in a row. And if they can do that, that's progress. Winning the game, we won't even talk about, right? I actually think there's a chance U of H could win this game. But I also think there's an equal chance they lose 41-0 again. My co-host on our podcast texted me just a little bit before we got on this and said, they're coming off a rivalry game and they've got some things before Armageddon, and they're right for but I think we're going to lose 38-3. Like, well, okay. So I think there's maybe, but I don't know if this program is ready to take that step. And, they're just going to have to show me. And I'm perfectly willing to be wrong. It's a lot better content for us. Am I the only one that hears that?
What is it?
I hear it too.
Okay.
Well,
Is it on my end? Hold on.
You're good. Chef, hit us with the score predictions and then we'll get out of here.
Let's do the score predictions then. I'm going to go right off of what Ryan was saying. What your buddy texts you is exactly how I feel. I feel like it's going to be one of those dreary days where we're going into a 3:30 kick for me, 2:30 for you guys, going down to Houston. I don't know what the fan capacity is going to be like. It might be sold out for all I know. It might be hyped up, but I feel like coming off of a game where we just had an emotional dump on winning versus KU. I've got the score 28-24 K-State.
Ryan, are you going to stick with the 38-3 that you just kind of slipped out of your mouth?
Well, that's not my score prediction. That's the fat guy. I don't do score predictions because that just comes back to haunt you. But show me something. Just show me that you can put 2 games together. It wasn't pretty last week, but you got it done. And let's see if they can do that again.
I like it. Well, maybe I don't. I don't know.
Maybe you don't.
I'm going to go 35-17 Cats. I'm on the opposite side of you, Chef. I think it's more likely to be a blowout, but who knows? 17 points is a lot of points to give up. So whatever. I'm going 35-17.
Against this team, it really is.
Yeah.
The 17 points U of H scored against Utah was the third most scored this year. So
there you go.
Yeah.
And, you know, our defense can be hit or miss. So we'll see is what I'm getting at. But Ryan, thanks a ton again for coming on for the second straight year. Let the Cokeheads know where they can find you, and we'll give you the final word here before we get out of here.
It's gocougs.com, 2 O's, and then GoCougs1 on all of our social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. And we also bought another website last week. We bought a message board. The biggest U of H message board there is, cougfans.com.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. So we're going over there and doing things and trying some stuff. So try that one too.
Absolutely. If you're a Cougs fan listening, definitely check that out. That's going to do it for us today. But before we sign off, I do want to make a quick ask of everybody listening or watching this. We've got 200 plus people watching it live right now. But if you aren't already, do us a quick favor and subscribe to us on YouTube. We are 25 subscribers away from being able to monetize. So it would be a tremendous help to us if you could take 5 seconds to go and do that for us. So we would love that if you do that. If you don't, whatever, I can't make you do anything. But once again, shout out to our sponsors, Pat's Beef Jerky and Annie Mae's Parlor. Remember to visit patsbeefjerky.com and use the promo code CATS for 10% off your next order. And we are the K-State representative on the College Huddle, which is the largest community of fan-driven content in the nation. So check them out at thecollegehuddle.com as well for articles, videos, podcasts from essentially, I think it's 70 plus teams that we have in FBS now. So rocking it over there. And last but not least, you can follow our show at Cocaine Willie on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, or Instagram, or you can follow us individually. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Chef is at Chef Andre Napier. And Fireball Matt is in
Lisbon?
Portugal.
Oh, okay. Well, Carmen San Diego was wrong on that
Lisbon
one.
is in Portugal. So
God damn it.
You're all set. Chef.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, baby.
We are all Coke and no joke. Wildcat country.
Let's freaking
ride.